Tonight's guest is Tony Blauer, or as most know him, Coach Tony Blauer. He's the founder, CEO, and head visionary for Blauer Tactical Systems. Tony has dedicated his entire life to keeping people safe. He's worked his way from training people personally, people in corporate America, to training law enforcement and military personnel. He really understands the psychology behind fear management and is a registered trademark on something called No Fear, KNOWFEAR. I could talk for days about Tony's fire, passion, grit, determination, and his dedication to his craft, but I'd much rather you hear from him. So let's dive in. Hey folks, thanks for tuning into the show. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, the Podcast Index, and Podcasting 2.0. We'd really appreciate if you download Fountain, find us there, and support us via Value for Value. We hope you enjoy the show. Happy listening. Welcome to 10,000 Miles. How you doing today, my brother?
I am good, man. So good to see you again, Vic.
You too. It's been too long, but it's funny. You know, we caught up for a couple minutes here before the show, and it feels like I just saw you yesterday. So that's one of my best feelings when I get to talk to people I've known for a long time. Super excited you're here.
I mean, it's been decades and gone through, from the self-defense to the music to the entrepreneur stuff to coming to work out with me when I was doing the CrossFit defense stuff and just staying in touch. So it's so cool to catch up.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, for the audience, they don't have the benefit of knowing you the way I do. And certainly, I'm not your next door neighbor. But, I've followed you from Canada back in, the 80s to the East Coast of America, out to the West Coast, watched you form multiple businesses, attended your seminars as a student, not just a friend, but as a student interested in what you were doing. You made your way into creating a combative system that, has been accepted and widely adopted by law enforcement and the military. That is an amazing accomplishment. And what I can tell the audience is that it ain't easy. And so why don't you start off by telling people who you are and tell us your story, man. Take us back to wherever you want to go to.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, I was born in the woods. I was raised by anteaters, and I just, dude, I'm so old now. I remember when I was talking to Moses, and he was working on the. Dude, I'm 64 now. I can't believe that I'm still doing this, and I'm moving around and doing seminars, and it's just wire. Thank you. That might be the AI on the platforms now. Like, make this guy look younger. But I train all the time. Like, I have programs going on, all over the world, both like Zoom education to live in-person stuff, and still traveling at time. But, like as far as origin stories and background, you kind of described what I do. I get my elevator speech is a little bit more disjointed now. You would think that as I got more successful in business, and get tighter and tighter. But if you ask me what I do right now, I help people develop their self-awareness, because if you improve your self-awareness, you improve your critical thinking. And if you improve your critical thinking, you can be a more successful human. It's like, whoa, like, what are you talking about? I teach you blood fight. It's like at the core of understanding how to protect yourself, you learn how to protect your family. And at the core of learning how to protect yourself and your family, you understand how to protect your business. I'm legendary for my tangents. I'll try to remember all the different stories.
No, this is great.
But you probably remember well, around 2010, I was the victim of a corporate takeover, lost a $12 million company over a weekend. Because of, this is fascinating, when I was in Montreal doing this deal in the States to move everything, close Canada, move to the States, my Canadian lawyer said this sentence here in this operating agreement could mean this. It's intentionally vague. These people are very good. It's intentionally vague, and it could mean this. And I'm a fear management expert. It's one of the vertical companies. It's one of the most important things you do, the No Fear program. For those of you maybe listening to this and not watching, the shirt I have on is one of our brands, No Fear, but it's spelled KNOW. Hypothesis is when we change our relationship with fear, we can change our mind in real time. And if you can change your mind in real time, you can actually change your day, your week, and your life. Because you're understanding the obstacles of fear. And that impacts when you talk to where you live, how much money you make, what type of dad or mom you are, how much weight you can lift. And where I had this intuition was teaching people how to manage violence. And I observed that only the people who manage their fear manage to fight. I'll say that again, only the people who manage their fear manage to fight. And it was never about, should I do an arm bar? Should I do a kick? Should I do a gun disarm?
Yeah.
It was like, can you manage your fear and put yourself back in the fight? Anyways, so here I am, telling 90 stories at once, but I'm talking to my lawyer in Montreal, and I can't believe I'm finally doing this deal. All my business is in the States. I've wanted to work in the States forever, and I got this big opportunity to move and set up this training center and do all these contracts. And he says, I don't like this clause. And I said, well, what could it mean? He says, it means they can remove you from the company.
Okay.
And I said, well, who would want to? The name of the company is Blauer Tactical, and I'm one of the most famous self-defense combative guys in the world. I've been in hundreds of magazines. They're doing the deal with me because I'm like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or whoever in my industry. I'm the guy. Why would they remove me? He says they won't, but I was just telling you as your lawyer,
They could.
It's a sentence. And I went into the fear loop as a fear management expert.
Okay.
I said, because we'd already gone back and forth, and I could tell we were running, and you know what it is. You've done deal. It's like, you start to go, man, should I push for this? Should I ask for this? Should I, or is this a win-win? Are we good enough here?
Yeah.
And I didn't say anything. And 3 years later, that line became the line. I literally started crying when I realized what happened. I put my head down. I thought, oh my God. Because when I teach self-defense, and I want to be totally transparent here, when I teach people how to protect themselves, and I work with bodyguards, SWAT, military, law enforcement, people like you, I always say no awareness, no chance. There's an energetic pre-contact cue. What do I mean by that? Every victim of violence who lived it down the tail said they had a bad feeling. And that's what I call the energetic. Like intuition is something you know to be true, but you don't have the evidence yet. And so we've created this formula in our programming that teaches you what to do next. And I knew what to do. I created the program, and I said, I'm not going to do that. I didn't want to blow the deal.
Yeah.
I ended up literally losing I was forced to dissolve a company literally over a weekend and almost lost everything. And when I sat back after and I did my whiteboard on the experience, my after action review, I saw pre-contact queue. I chose to ignore it. And then boom, you get a phone call and, hey, we're removing you as manager of Blauer Tactical because of this. And I'm like, you can't do that. Yeah, we can. Holy shit. And then
here's the line in the contract.
Yeah. And
Tony, it's not uncommon. Okay, it's not uncommon. There are so many stories throughout my business interactions, my career, my observation of things where people who are experts in everything that they instinctively know sometimes don't listen to their inner thing about themselves. For one, that's a whole other episode about why we don't do that. Like, what is the psychology behind what we don't do that? The best money managers might not manage their own money
Right.
as well as they manage the money for other people. And so, I mean, there are 50 analogies to it, and maybe down the road we'll have another one of these conversations, but that's a super interesting concept. But you knew it. You came in, you were eager, you wanted to get to the States, and you said, well, shit, it's Blauer Tactical. Like,
Right.
what is this if there's no Blauer? What is it? It's tactical.
You know,
There's nothing else.
It's funny, Dick, is one of my favorite quotes, Richard Feynman quote. He says, the first principle is to never fool yourself. And remember, you're the easiest person to fool.
Oh, boy.
Right? It's such a good quote. And it's the rational lie. The play on words, rationalize. The rational lie we tell ourselves. I knew I was afraid that if I said change this line, they might say, you know what, stay in Canada.
Yeah.
This isn't happening. We're going back and forth at meantime. And the truth of the matter is, like, had they rejected it, had I done that and they rejected it, it meant that they were going to fuck me anyhow. Right?
Yeah.
Like that was in mind. Where had it been innocent and really we want this to be successful, of course we'll change it. What do you want to do? I've had a lot of contracts with some guys go, I don't like these two things. And they go, write what you want. And we'll see if we can live with it. Right? There's we want to win. Let's go. And it was fascinating. I remember doing some I got contacted because of some of the people and organizations I work with. I'm very well respected in the combative self-defense, personal safety community. So I've had certain businesses contact us. On one of the talks I do, I did this for an entrepreneur group where they said, "Hey, can you come in? Can you come in for 2 days and talk? We want one day on personal defense, like your own bodyguard stuff, because a lot of these people, they're very successful business people, but they don't have or can't afford like a full-time executive protection team, but they're still." And they go, what else? What other stuff can you talk about? And I said, how about this? How the world's leading self-defense experts fail to use all of the skills he teaches in self-defense to protect himself and his business and security of his family, and lost everything, and then had to rebuild that with that interesting story to an entrepreneur. And they were like, holy shit. So it was a wonderful experience, almost like I think, we were talking about before we logged in, is like, you got to have your spirits up, but your head is down.
Yeah.
And it took me 5 years to rebuild and to recognize, and this is a message for everybody. I was talking about this morning on a call. Years and years ago, Chuck Norris came out with a book, and I forget the title of it now, but everyone in the martial art competitive world knows that he's lost fights, but the premise of his book is I've never lost a fight. I lost a fight because I ripped it apart. I reinvented myself. That'll never happen again. And so without that loss, I can't set myself up for victory. There was just this mindset of, instead of tail between our legs, and I guess I'm not meant to be an entrepreneur because I got screwed, and I'll go flip burgers somewhere.
Yeah.
That victim mindset.
Couple great stories. I have a friend of 40 years. You may or may not have met him back in the day. His name is Tony. We all refer to him now as Coach Tony. His last name is Palmucci. He worked for Tony Robbins for a number of years.
Oh, wow.
And he's done his, 10, 20, 30,000 hours of one-on-one coaching with business executives. And we talk hours a week about, this kind of stuff, about, personal improvement and sort of mindset. And, we come up with the mindset is the skill set. Like, that's really what sort of translates into everything else. I had another guest on in that vein who said, yeah, I was, wasn't a guest. I was watching something online. And this woman says, you meet the most interesting people in first class on a flight, but I never expect to meet a billionaire. Really? She said, because billionaires are flying private, but I'm going to meet some pretty successful people flying in first class. And lo and behold, I'm on this flight and I start chatting with this guy next to me. Turns out he's a billionaire. For whatever reason, he's in, 2A and I'm in 2B, and we start chatting. And she said, where are you going? And he said, I got this little club I belong to. and we meet every quarter. And she goes, what is it? He goes, it's the best business group I've ever been in. Very hard to get into it. And it has really not much to do with money. She goes, he said, I'm not the most wealthy guy in there, but by far, I'm not the least. And so she said, what's the criteria to get in the club? And he said, you have to be an entrepreneur. You have to have started a business. It had to have crumbled to the ground. You'd have to reinvented yourself. You had to have been sued once, twice, 3 times and come out on top of that. Maybe you filed bankruptcy. Maybe you were indicted and you either went to jail or you got out of your, like all the worst things had to happen to you, right? But you had to emerge on the other side. No matter the adversity, you're in the fucking club, right? You're in the club. And I heard that, man. I'm like, all right, I could do without the indictments in the jail, but all of the other stuff, like, that's where the grit comes from. And, the mindset is the skill set. Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
I like that, and it's they're going back to the you talked about grit. It's funny. This popped in my head. I've never said this out loud. There was an element of shame and embarrassment, and that fueled me. I was so pissed off. It was, I need to reinvent myself. And it was interesting. It was never, I hear a lot of people say this, I'll show them.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back and I'm going to fucking buy your company, man. You're going to work for me. I'm going to fire you. Like there's this anger fueling it. That wasn't me. I was so embarrassed that I let this happen to me and my family.
Yeah, understood.
And because I could have stopped it in Montreal 3 years earlier. But I did it. The Richard Feynman quote, first principle, don't fool yourself. I'm good. I'm cool. But I knew I was afraid. My heart was pounding when I read that, because when we teach in the No Fear program, we love the acronym. You've heard me say it a million times. False expectations appearing real. And I describe that as I'm visualizing an event in the future, hasn't even happened, and it's influencing my behavior in the present in a derogatory way. And this could go for, hey, should I ask that man or woman out? If they're not my lead, I'm not their, they're going to get rejected. And so we cast ourselves in a movie in our mind where we cast ourselves as the victim in our own production. Yeah. And it changes the course of our life. And a lot of people do that, right? Business loves speed, violence loves speed, the market loves speed. And we sit around and we go, should I buy this house? I shouldn't buy this house. Let me think about it. Let me talk to somebody. Okay, I'm going to make an offer. Oh, I'm so sorry. Someone else did. There's a million stories where we didn't. You're like, hey, should we patent this? Should we? Oh, too late. And so all of that comes back to, and this is why I've got like 88 different courses that we teach. Gunphone, grappling, multiple assailant, counter kidnapping, knife, gun, all this stuff. If you said to me, what's your favorite course? I'm going to tell you my No Fear course. You go, what are you talking about, man? You've done stuff with the tier 1 guys. You got this drill, a scenario course. You got your high gear equipment where you're actually doing scenario. How can a course that involves like keynote and discussion be your most favorite course?
Yeah.
But let's go on, Tony. Like, I don't believe you. Bullshit. What's your most important course then? My No Fear course.
Yeah.
Right? Your ability to manage fear changes your ability to self-actualize, to become the best version of yourself. And more importantly, in any crisis state, there will be fear. And
Tony,
there
let
will
me
be
ask you a
fear in
question.
non-crisis too.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Let me unpack something. False expectations appearing real. Okay. Yeah. I have a great friend of mine for 40 years. We talk every single day, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day, depending on my schedule and his. And he and I are very different, but very, the yin and yang, right? You can't, one piece doesn't fit without the other. he will tell me all the time, and he recognizes this about himself. He'll say, I was out somewhere and I saw some guy, and I don't know why. He goes, man, my head's crazy. All of a sudden, I saw this guy get up from the table and punch my wife in the face. He goes, and I saw that, and I started getting hot, and I'm getting pissed off, and like, he goes, it's not going to happen. And I said, well, there's to me, there's two sides of that coin. There's the piece that is, what's my situational awareness? How do I protect myself from, if somebody looks a little sideways, you don't want to profile people, but you got to profile some people, right? Sure. Not by race, but by behavior, right?
Yeah.
And so, okay, I said to him, that part sounds pretty good to me, but just pissed off your whole fucking day. Like your whole day was shit because of this, right? And you build these mountains of stories in your mind, and to your point that you said earlier, it controls everything else he does, or a lot of things he does. But here's the interesting thing. He knows this about himself. So what is it about false expectations appearing real? Like, what is the pattern interrupt? Now, this is probably a part of your course, and you could give the viewers a 2% of it for free here. Like, what is it about that behavior and that mindset that's either unchangeable, or what needs to happen to change it?
Maybe the first thing is the superpower self-awareness, right? Which just sounds like he has. He recognizes, like how many of your listeners, or how many times, and this might happen to you, Vic, but somebody around you where you can see through body language, and their energy, body language is about 60% of communication. Yeah. You walk into a room, to the office, and see someone sitting there, and you can tell they're stressed, they're worried about something.
Oh yeah.
Is it money? Is it politics? Is it health? Is it their kids? There's something up, because you know them. They're not normally like this. And you say to them, hey, are you okay? And they look up like, you talking to me? Yeah, of course. Yeah. Why? And you go, I don't know, man. It just looked like something was up. No, I'm fine. And then 3 days later, or 5 days later, or a week later, you find out something was up.
Yeah.
A lot of people, this is a heavy concept, fear. They're afraid to talk about their fear. And it's not about milking vulnerability or anything like that. It's just that most of us haven't been taught to express our fear. For fear, ironically, of being judged or evaluated or laughed at or ridiculed or whatever the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
And so the self-awareness piece is critical. And here's an interesting thing, because I mentioned the self-awareness, critical thinking, decision-making, path formula, and prior in the conversation. But the key to it, the way to develop the superpower of self-awareness, is by studying what you fear. Because this is, I fucking love this shit.
I'm on fire right now.
Is when you look at the things you fear, you become intimate with the Feynman principle. I go, hey man, let's go skydiving. And you go, no, I'm busy. And I go, okay, well, when are you not busy? I don't know, the rest of my life, I'm never going skydiving.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is that? Well, I'm afraid of heights. Yeah, but like, you're not jumping to the earth. You've got a parachute on.
Yeah.
And you go down, and finally, someone will say, I'm afraid to die while skydiving. What if my chute doesn't open? But now we're at a singular point where we're discussing the actual fear, as opposed to the rational lie or the conversation around, I don't want to talk about it. So, like, if I was sitting here like this, and you walk into the room, and you went, hey man, are you okay? I blow my team away. I'll walk into a meeting and go, guys, I had a shitty night's sleep. I had this weird dream that I think was real, but I know it wasn't real, but I'm in a bad mood. And so I'm cranky. I didn't have breakfast. If I snap at anyone, I apologize in advance. I'm still working through all this shit. Okay, let's go. And everyone's like, what the fuck? Like, people are used to somebody narrating self-awareness in real time.
Yeah.
So if you said to me, hey, are you okay? If I wanted to talk about it, I go, blah, 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 blah. If I didn't want to talk about it, I go, I am freaking stressing about something, but I don't want to talk about it. But I wouldn't say, yeah, I'm okay. Because I know.
Right. Right.
That's the self-awareness piece. And that's the magic link. And a lot of people don't want that. I would, if I were working privately with your friend,
Yeah.
I would want to know a theme. That's a very, I don't want to say, I don't know another word for quirky, but like seeing somebody staring at you and then visualizing and punching your wife and not you
Yeah.
is very unique. And, and if I say this, has that ever happened before? He says, well, that's all I visualize. Then I go, well, guess what? I can read your fucking tea leaves, man.
Yeah.
Something happened to you in a dream, in a movie, in life. You were a kid, you don't remember, and somebody punched your mother or your sister, and this is now a fear of yours. Or if you can't remember that, and I'm not talking about past lives, and I'm not going to use thing. I'm just saying, the fact that he visualized it happening to his wife and not him, and him not doing anything. Well, I would go, well, what would we need to do so that you knew what to do so you could interrupt this nightmare?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Right. And
well, I think he's got a high value prop in him protecting his wife.
Right.
And so in the event it did happen and he didn't get there, he probably didn't do his job according to the way he sees himself doing his job. And now he wants to slit the guy's throat, right? He's going to smash him into a million pieces. Right. None of this shit ever happens, by the way. His wife is the sweetest woman in the world. Anybody who sees her is probably going to give her a hug before they do anything.
I want to punch her right now.
But no, it's just interesting. I'm fascinated by this talk and always have been and always will be. If you don't mind, because I pulled you off center,
all right.
I want to take it. So you moved from Canada. Was it Virginia is where you had this business?
Yeah.
Dude, so that was some facility. Tell us about that facility. That was larger than life, that place.
It was over 20,000 feet. At the time, it was the world's largest CrossFit-inspired facility. We had the first ever Digican mats. We had an octagon, bags. I mean, I think the ceilings were 40 feet.
They were giant. He had the best giant murals and things up.
Oh yeah. It was wild. We had an indoor shoot house, not for live fire, but for force on force.
Okay.
We had air conditioning classrooms, multiple. It was amazing. And it might still have been there and nothing would have happened had a certain president elected who was very anti-military in terms of, although he's legendary for Western wars that he started and his use of drones.
Yeah.
All military, there was a military sequestration, all my contracts got frozen.
Wow.
And so we had designed this tactical gear called High Gear, and we did a $17 million deal with the U.S. Army this was like 1/3 of the order. And then that got frozen after that. So this was supposed to be like a $50 million project. And then things went sideways with, my partners and my COO. And that's when because they realized, without getting into the details,
yeah,
they realized like this, because of what was happening with the military sequestration, and I'm just not an ass kisser. And things got sideways and they went, well, how do we get rid of Blauer?
For those who don't know about High Gear, and I'm going to give them the layman's version of it. I studied martial arts for a while. It was a lot of fun. I used it for fitness, but also for, confidence and capability. And no matter how you sparred with people, you were never full on. And the challenge with that is that, and this is interesting, Tony, you could maybe unpack this for me. Even as a little kid, if I had a dream I was in a fight with somebody, still happens to this day, by the way, I'm 60 now, right? If I have a dream that and this doesn't happen often, when I go to throw a punch at somebody, my hand turns to spaghetti.
Okay.
Like my impact.
My nightmare dreams are,
okay.
I'm in slow motion and they're in real time.
And they're in real time. Yeah. So, the point I was making is that, you know, when you're training, like, unless you're really like going out at each other, you never know. You don't know. Like, people aren't full muscling you. I think ground fighting and jujitsu is different. There's a lot of strength. There's a lot of technique that's happening in there. But when you're ground fighting or when you're upstanding fighting, unless you're boxing or you got mitts on and gear, like, you're not going full out. And I had never been in a full out training scenario. When I first saw your gear, this was a very flexible, adaptable, protective, call it a suit of armor, so to speak, that allowed people to train full on safely, but also to have that experience of what combat or a fight or a brawl would really be like. Am I doing it justice?
Yeah. It's a you know, I jokingly refer to it as like a wrestling mat you wear. Right? You know, so it was articulated smartphones, head to toe, about 10 pounds, you know, helmet, chest guard, forearm, gloves, and like we did, like for certain groups, we did like counter kidnapping. The suit was so articulated and so flexible that we could actually throw someone in the trunk, simulate a kidnapping, and then when that trunk popped open, they could come out fighting, right? You could fight in a car and a small. So we were able to take stuff that typically would just happen in a mat room, which isn't realistic, and then go into real environments because you were out wearing this. And because it was so lightweight, it didn't impede on your speed. The only area, just to be transparent, that you have to control is some of the power depending on what you were doing. In other words, if I threw you to the ground and I went to punch you because of the visor or the plastics, I could go full speed and I could hit you super hard and something at an intensity you would never let happen if you were just grappling or even doing MMA.
You were saying it would lighten the defensive mode too, possibly.
So we created a whole series of drills where you could suddenly go inside the eye of the metaphoric self-defense tornado, and instead of getting worried about shit, go, this block I was practicing just doesn't work at this distance, at this speed, and now I'll just hit me across the face, but it didn't break my nose or crack my skull or ridge or knock me out because I've got this helmet on and he had this elbow pad on, and wow, that was a good thing to learn in the laboratory of the gym instead of to find out that what I've been practicing wasn't going to work in a real fight. So there's a whole bunch of training modalities where you were right on. You could, the big fancy word we use is stress inoculate. You could go into this event so that in your mind, there's a slogan we used to use to describe it. And there was, I learned it from an old old Vietnam vet. He said, experience is something you get shortly after you need it.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I said, you know what? You could replicate violence by studying what we see. And we created a whole system where you look at real events and we created a formula on how do you reverse engineer it and then build it from slow motion to medium to real speed. But in order for me to understand that, I needed some sort of protective gear. In the same way you might take like a training gun and clear your house. Well, it's not the same as going into a live fire training and knowing, holy shit, I'm way less accurate when I'm moving fast with a real gun through a shoot house than when I was, doing my mantis or my pistol. It just changes everything. So a lot of us have ideas on what we would do, and then it's like I put a role player in front of you, and your ass gets tight, and your breathing gets shallow, and you go, that wasn't so easy.
I'll tell you the first time I was in a live fire shoot house, bad shit happened. I killed good guys. I mean, it was just, no matter how much training I did. I used to be a member of this place out in Pahrump, Nevada called Front Sight. It since has been purchased by another organization, and I think my lifetime membership is no longer lifetime.
Right.
But I was out there a lot. I used to go out there with my son a couple of times a year. It was a fantastic facility. I don't know if you've ever been out there, but first time I was in a shoot house where, the bad guys are popping up, the hostages are popping up, and, they walk you through the scenario. And the first time you're in there, you don't know what angles people are coming from. You're clearing doorways. You're doing all this stuff. It was, it was different. I shot a hostage. I shot a good guy. It's like, it wasn't good.
Yeah.
But you go through that, and then they mix it up day to day. So instead of coming from the left, it comes from the right. Instead of a bad guy coming first, a hostage comes first. By the end of the week, this thing was 4 days. Like, I kicked ass on day 4, right? But you can't get that drawing a weapon from your side and shooting a target.
Yeah, but why? And this is the thing. So I mean, you're an entrepreneur and a creative, and you're an athlete, and you're a musician, and you're technical, and you're self-driven. So, like me, same personalities, which is why we like each other, is I would go to that course and expect to ace it on day one. Right?
Yeah,
You went in there going, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to be like Yosemite Sam, going,
yeah,
and do this. And then you find out, and it's interesting because there's a couple of places that have done a good job of getting the local journalisms to go through a force on force course, because everyone's so fast to say police brutality, you guys shouldn't have shot him, and this and that. And anytime they've done an expose where some biased journalist goes through the training, I mean, they're killing everybody. There's the refractory delay between stimulus response, the big fancy word for the gap time. When you're scared and you have no training, even when you have training, if you're scared, and that's what we come back to no fear. That is still, we're talking about grit and business and entrepreneurship and mindset is the skill set. If this were exclusively law enforcement, if you happen to be getting what's wrong with law enforcement, I would be saying the most important course is the fear management, and you're not teaching it.
Yeah, that's huge.
It can't be on the job, and it's the same thing as when I work with an entrepreneur. So I mentor. I got some business groups, but I mentor some people. One of the things I go, like, your number one fear is public speaking. Your number one fear is pitching a deal. I work with this is crazy, getting calls from people who are in money management, stock market. The amount of fear they have.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like everyone has fear. And so it's not that I got a program on investing or a program on shoot, no shoot. It's a program on the neuroscience of managing fear. Because what everyone talks about, fight, flight, freeze, and amygdala hijack and limbic system, it's not that it's nonsense. It's just that it's irrelevant in that it happens at a non-conscious level. You don't know when you're going to flip out or freak out or be calm. You can't predict it. The stimulus has to happen. And then someone goes, hey, Vic, you were remarkably calm. And then you go, yeah, it was. Well, why is that? Oh, you know what? But sometimes you're like, fuck, I can't just let's go. And you don't know, like this morning, I forgot we had some workers coming over to do some stuff. They had a business call at 8:30 with a group of 20 people. Then I had a class that I do online live at 10:30. And then these guys show up. I haven't fed the dogs. We've got 4 big dogs. I got in bed late. I didn't do my ritual. And my brain is going, oh, fuck. And I'm like, oh, my day is shot. I hate when I start like this. And the self-awareness muscle said, it grabbed me. It said, stop. Stop making the movie. False expectations appearing real. Take a breath and figure this out now. And it was like, okay, feed the dogs, these guys will wait here, I'll start to do this. And it wasn't a perfect morning, but it became a good morning. But it was because of the self-awareness piece. And this might seem like such a lame example, but this is how to like the point of your friend, he visualizes that image, gets himself all worked out, his blood pressure goes through the roof, and now he's in a bad mood and he's waiting to get in a death match with somebody during dinner. And his wife's going, are you okay? And he's going, yeah, why? Because he doesn't know what to talk about. So,
this is, I could see why this is the favorite course. It's not a combatives course. I mean, it is a course that applies to everyone's life. no matter where they engage, whether it's with their loved one, their significant other, their kids, their family, their workplace, their business, lack of confidence. I mean, because underneath a lack of confidence is a fear of something all the time.
Correct.
Back to the law enforcement thing, I did a little bit of studying, during the time when all of this data was coming about police shootings and things like. I'm not a narrative guy. I don't like having opinion on a narrative that is not based on some information I got for my own.
Right.
Like somebody once recently said, hey man, the problem I got with like getting behind something today is I don't know that the information I'm receiving is enough for me to have a position on it because everything's sort of manipulated. So to my point, I start looking up statistics about, in a police incident, how many bullets or, strays and where they all went and who discharged how many rounds per weapon, and like shit is spraying all over the place. I mean, in a real hostile situation, depending on what, the bad guys have and when the good guys show up, and everybody thinks it's a what do they call, what was that with Mel Gibson, the movie where
Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon. Everybody thinks it's a lethal Weapon movie. Pull out, pop, 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 pop. They go right between the eyes and they go away. The one thing I learned, I might have learned this from you, by the way, and if I didn't, I'll give you credit for it today. But that the first thing in it, when the adrenaline goes up and the shit's getting real, the first thing to fall is fine motor skills.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's the first thing to go away is fine motor skills. So you'll perform to the point of your lowest training. So that's why in training these situations, you've got to train at such a ridiculous level of excellence and expertise because you're going to fall to your lowest level of training. And so if you don't have these great training programs, if you don't train for fear management, this is why police spray bullets all over the place, and why I think they need guys like you, and they need beyond. There's a lot of training that needs to happen there. But what's your experience with fine motor skills and things like that? Did I get that from you? I think I did.
Yeah, I mean it's a common thing in a lot of research that as our heart rate elevates, our access to complex motor skills deteriorate. But I first heard that in the early 90s, and my intuition, and a lot of my programs are built on intuition. I go to your point that why should I believe this narrative? Is it biased? Is somebody trying to sell something? And now we know today, like approximately 101% of everything is propaganda. Right?
Yeah.
So and if it's not propaganda, it's somebody selling something. They're on their
follow the money.
Yeah. And so when I first heard this, and it was a very famous researcher, expert in the law enforcement world named Lucille, he said, hey, when your heart rate gets above 140 or 136 or whatever your complex motor skills, if it's not. And my brain immediately went, my entrepreneur brain went, what if you trained complex motor skills with an elevated heart rate? Then that wouldn't be true. Like our training, you remember this, you've heard me say this a bunch of times. In a real fight, you are off balance emotionally, psychologically, and physically, at least at the beginning of a real violent encounter.
Yeah.
So the way that you recalibrate faster is if you train off balance on purpose.
Interesting.
You're like, what? So we would do things literally. How can I physically be off balance? How can I emotionally be off balance? How can I psychologically be off balance? And then challenge that kind of like homeostasis, so that and over the decades, I've gotten so many emails and letters from people that said, my training with you was more challenging than this actual fight.
Wow.
Right? And so it was going, wouldn't this be awful if this happened? And you built to it. It's not like I'm too afraid to train with Blauer. It's a crawl, walk, run. I mean, I'm not an idiot. It's like, here, boom, throw you into, not just the wolves, but there's also alligators and tigers at the same time, and snakes. It's not like that. There's an intelligent process and formula. But yeah, I mean, I've identified like 4 like global phases to some sort of like strategic tactical decision making. So a lot of people talk about strategies and tactics.
Yeah.
But so our 4 stages is this: situational awareness is stage 1. If you have no awareness, you have no chance. You know, and you probably remember that line. It's one of our
I
classes.
do.
No awareness, no chance. If you don't know what to look for, you're not going to see it coming. Right? And that goes for the distance. That's weird. Everyone's wearing handcuffs, and this guy's wearing a black guy in the way. Right?
Yeah.
Is he just into goth music, or is something bad about that? Right? And I need to process that. As soon as you see something like that, you get a fear spot. And I'll tell you this, for those of you who are watching, everyone listening to this has forgotten their phone or their keys somewhere, and for a moment didn't know where that somewhere was. And if you're watching me, I'm going to reenact a skit here on video where I go like this, and I start to leave the bar at a restaurant. All of a sudden, I go, "Fuck,
Yeah.
my phone!"
Yeah.
And we're doing this.
The old jerky.
But so I always tell people, when you get a fear spike, your nervous system immediately stops what it's doing. Executive function is hijacked. Your cognitive brain is bypassed, and a startle response starts to deploy. Shit, where? And you've done this, do you? Like, think about this. Have you ever locked the electronic key to your hotel room in the hotel room, and as you close the door, you realize it?
Yeah. Yep.
And what do you do?
Well,
you go like this, like, oh, and you do some like sort of dramatic thing to try and catch the door with your foot or your hand, and then the door closes, and you're like, fuck. And then you go, oh, I'll get a new key downstairs.
Right.
But look how outrageous the response is. And where are my keys? Where's my wallet? Where's my phone? Where's it? And then people think that they're going to go to a martial art class, and then when a gunman comes in the room or someone tries to rob them or kidnap them, they're going to do some Jackie Chan, John Wick shit.
They're going to do a kata.
but Vic, we all freak out when we can't find our phone. My phone, where is it? It was on the bar. It's like, you forget it. Cancel your phone, or there it is. Someone stole it. Go downstairs and get a new key. Show them your ID. Oh, your ID's in the room too. Security will come up with you. It's not a big deal. But
you know how I solved that for myself?
What?
See this? These are a set of Beats earbuds. Okay. I am famous in my house for not being able to find my earbuds.
Nice.
I have 4 set of fucking earbuds. Okay. And so I got a 1 in 4 shot. I've removed the panic from my life.
Right.
I've got them rotated around. I'm always going to grab a pair that kind of work. And my wife and family, they all, oh, where's my case? Where's my earbud? Yeah, why do you have 4 pair? Oh, yeah, because, I'm tired of hearing your shit. That like I can't find my stuff. So now if I don't find it, I don't have that sort of reflex. And I go, oh, yeah, because like you said, the key's downstairs. I want to tell you a story, though, real quick. I want you to unpack it for me. I had a life-changing event this last Christmas. Seriously, a life-changing event. My whole life, have not been in many physical altercations. I think there have been 2. I'm not an aggressive guy by nature. I am aware. I'm also Italian. We never put our back to the door. But I've always been aware. I've been into athletics. I've tried to keep myself strong, but I always doubted myself, Tony. As much confidence as I had in business, I doubted that, like, if something were to happen, would I have the gusto, the skills, whatever, the response to react in a crisis? Like, what would I do in a crisis? And it was something I thought about. I didn't obsess over it. I wasn't really afraid of it per se, but I lacked the confidence in it for sure. And so we have a dinner in Atlantic City, New Jersey, December of last year. And we've got 50 some odd people in this private room. And there are 2 long tables of about 25, 26, 27 people. And this guy, Pat, is sitting at the end. I'm sitting to his left. His wife is sitting to his right. My wife is left to me. Pat's a big guy, great guy, salt of the earth, Italian dude from New Jersey, big guy. And the appetizers come out, and he puts an entire slab of pork belly down his throat. and he starts choking. And so his wife says to him, "Are you choking?" And he goes, like, it's lodged. Okay.
Right.
Without hesitation, we both jump up. She sort of spins him and goes to put his arms around him, turns around in complete, like, you know how you say physiology, like completely looks like a wet noodle because she can't get her arms around him. I push her to the side. I get my arms around him, and my fingers, Tony, are locked like this. You know, I got nothing on him, and I give him two big ones, and I look around to my side. I look at my wife, and she goes, "Not out." And then I only know one other person who's been in a situation like that. It's Coach Tony, the other Coach Tony.
Yeah.
And he saved his grandmother's life. And I remembered the story where he said to her, "Relax." And right as he felt her go limp, he gave her the big blast, and a piece of steak flew clear across the table. And so this was going through my mind. You know, in these situations, this is milliseconds, right? This isn't like even seconds or minutes. And I got a little bit lower, and I said, I got to go in and up at the same time. And I yelled, "Relax." And the second I felt him go limp, boom, I gave him the biggest blast that I thought I was going to crack some ribs. If he was either going to be broken ribs or dead, or maybe all of them. And I looked to the side, and my wife's got her thumbs up like this. The thumb came up on screen.
Yeah.
The pork belly, you know, the pork belly flew out, and his wife's crying. The place is going nuts. And when it was all over, I sat there like this, and I'm going to look into the screen because I was staring off into space just like this. I was stunned, dude. My wife goes, "Are you okay?" I go, "I need a minute." Because I had no idea in that, like my biggest fear was happening. Like, can I save this guy? Are my arms going to be the last ones around him while he's alive? What if I can't do this? How am I going to live the rest of my life? How's this guy and his wife and his family going to live? Like, and all those doubts and fears, when that freaking pork belly came flying out, I sat there stunned. And this, of course, you know, I'm around by a bunch of Jersey guys, and they're all big ball breakers. And one guy goes to my wife, you better look out for him tonight, because even I want to have sex with him." You know, he was like, "He's a hero." And I'm like, well, I don't know about that. And people are freaking out. But, you know, what is it about? I mean, that was completely like a fear I had. But I don't know that it, you know, appeared real. I mean, but I showed up. Yeah. When I thought I wouldn't be able to. Like, what's going on there? Unpack that for me.
So first of all, what a cool story, and congratulations, man.
Thank you.
And I hope this guy is like, you know, whatever you want, he sends you roses and chocolates or something.
Let me finish the story before you get it, because what he did, I told my sister the story. She goes, "Did he go home?" I go, "No, he took a 30-second breather, and he ate a steak and lobster tail right after we were done." But I said, he's a Jersey guy. That's what we do. So thank you for that. But talk to me about it.
So, you know, for as long as I've known you, you know, you're a deep guy, man. You think about things, and I think that, you know, you probably never had that thought until you got older about, you know, when you started having kids, and now you're a husband, and now you got a business, and, you know, think about when we were in our 20s and somebody cut us off. You know, we'd race up, finger, whatever, fuck you, man, tailgate,
nothing to lose.
And then you start having kids, you're thinking the same thoughts, but you're like, you got your kid in the car, and you're still going, "You asshole, get your driver's license," you know. But so, you know, with experience comes wisdom.
Yeah.
And like, to me, so first of all, the false expectations appearing real, for it to land in my program, and a lot of people do this, it's a fair question. It's got to have a pejorative meaning in your life. Pejorative is a big fancy word for negative.
Yeah.
If you, like, you know what cutting the pie is, right? From your CQB, right? So people who don't know what that is how would you clear a room without exposing yourself immediately right away? If I think there's a threat in another room, walking in the middle of the door and stopping the doorway, with both hands in the doorway, going, "Hey, what's going on here?"
Yeah.
Well, like that's a problem. You would want to. It's like think of like as a kid playing hide and go seek, and you're peeking around a tree or a room in a house. You want to get caught. You don't want to get. And so for I would not classify this as a false expectation of pure and real. It was just something you were visualizing, going, man. I hope I make the play happen if I'm called. Wondering if you'll be the courageous bystander is not the same as worrying that you won't be. It's contemplating stuff, and so it's not exactly the same thing. But if you said to me, look, every time I go to dinner, I worry about somebody choking. I think the same way with your friend, I'd say, Vic, you or somebody or something happened where, like, this is not a normal thought.
Yeah.
It ruins your meal. Right?
Yeah, and I don't have that, but I get your point. Yeah.
So, what's more fascinating to me is this. I remember teaching, ironically, at a big law enforcement conference decades ago. And this guy, oh my God, I'm Bob Lindsay, I'm almost got more of a friend of his name because he's like an old, I guess in the old. He's retired. He was a cop when JFK was killed.
Okay.
In Louisiana, and that's his history, like back, holy shit, right? And he's one of the most prolific, famous trainers. And he watches me teach a class for the first time in the early 90s. And he pulls me aside and it's like, holy shit, Bob Lindsay wants to talk to me. And he says to me, your message is different than the other trainers. And you're going to get a lot of pushback from people because you're the new kid on the block. He said, promise me, Tony, that you will never stop teaching, never stop coaching. He said, because everyone, whether they like you or not, will hear your voice in their head when they need your information to save their life. And that's what I thought about, because I've heard that a bunch of times from people who went, this guy was trying to kill me, and then I remembered this part from the seminar when you said.
Yeah.
And when you told me that you remembered the story with the guy, coach.
Yeah, my friend who saved his grandmother.
Yeah, saved his grandmother. Yeah. I got goosebumps right now, remembering Bob Lindsay saying,
amazing.
They will. And so what I heard, so I interpreted that as something different. You're a guy who cares. You don't want to be the helpless bystander going, So if you had an ongoing fear, if you called me up and said, I keep having this nightmare that somebody gets stabbed or shot near me and they bleed to death and I can't save them. And I go, have you done a tactical first aid, stop the bleed, a simple course with a paramedic, a firefighter, 4 or 5 hours, learn how to put on a tourniquet?
Yeah.
And you look at me, you go, no, I haven't. I go, well, dude, when you do that, that nightmare will stop.
Man, it's true. You can solve for the outcome. Guess what you're saying, right? You fear an outcome, train for the outcome.
You reverse engineer the solution.
That's right. Exactly.
So, in this case, like if you had said, I always had this thing there, somebody choking in front of me, but I've never learned the Heimlich, I've never done this, I've never practiced it. I go, you can learn it and still hope it never happens and you can still worry about it. But that would just be normal fear. I wanted to be a doctor when I was 7, 8 years old, and I'm playing with a knife, whittling some wood, playing with a knife, and the blade closes on my finger, slices my finger open at a place where there's no blood coming out. It opens up and I could see ligaments and tendon and bone.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, full. And I realized at 8 years old, dude, if that makes you want to pass out, you shouldn't be a doctor. Or maybe try and find something else, right?
Or cut more fingers until it doesn't make you puke.
Cut more fingers until you get used to it. I went in a different direction. I'll send people to the doctor, but I don't want to do the fixing. But It's an interesting thing. This is the power of the fear management of going, am I really afraid of this? Am I not? Am I just worried about this? And then you know, when we're doing our coaching stuff, and this was like a class this morning where I said, take a real video and we look at some atrocity happening and we go, violence loves speed. The only way that you're going to survive this type of event is if you improve your mind speed, which is your ability to, and I never went through the whole list, improve your situational awareness, know what to look for. When your situational awareness says that might be a problem, you will get a fear spike. If you don't manage the fear spike, you'll be in a fear loop. So that's like stepping in shit or bubble gum, and you're like, well, the fuck? Like, instead of keep walking, like, where you stop and you look and you're like, you're stuck right there. You need to keep fucking moving. And because that becomes a reflex. So if you step in shit in the middle of a four-way intersection, I guarantee the average person will stop in the intersection and they won't look for they sound like, this is what I mean by a sudden stimulus often hijacks executive function, bypasses complex motor skills. So something as simple as, where's my phone? And you're panicking over something that's insignificant, where you'll do that. Like, think about this. If you ever forgotten to, I'm off on a tangent. Let me go back to this thing. Situational awareness, fear spike, fear management. And then what are my strategic and tactical choices? Because I can't make intelligent choices while I'm emotionally reactive.
Right.
So the fear management is huge. And that formula applies to like business, relationships, confrontations of any nature. And very often, like, most of us won't get in. You've said you have 2 physical fights. You're 60. Most of us won't get in a fight unless you're like, you work at the shitty club or you're a cop in a shitty area. But all of us have fights every week in our head. Should I do this? Should I not do this? All the time. So and here's a heavy, heavy thing. When you're in the fear loop, you're worrying, you're building cortisol, you're in a bad mood. But when you recognize you're in the fear loop and then you make strategic choices to exit the fear loop, you've now gone out of wasting time to back onto spending time on, why was I afraid of that? What should I do to make sure that doesn't happen again? Or thank God that nightmare's over. So actually managing fear helps you manage time, and time is the only resource you can't regenerate. So if there's one
Tony,
gift,
it's huge. Have you tailored this no fear beyond, like, into corporate America to entrepreneurs?
It's literally only word of mouth.
Okay.
I've had people say to me, "Ben, you got to get your book out, and this is game changer."
Dude,
and I want to do that. I'm just busy.
I understand this. I know you as the combatives guy. That's how we got introduced, through martial arts. As I said, despite our lack of, talking and videoing and things, I've been following what you're doing for a long time, right? Yeah, I've been following your stuff. And I knew when you were in Dallas, I showed up at a seminar, right?
Yeah.
We drove around, we grabbed dinner, but I can tell you without a doubt, that for anybody listening, they should reach out to you, and they should have you do a no fear, whether it's you or one of your people. I'm not sure how you do it, but there's like no fear for entrepreneurs. No fear. And I don't mean like no fear like the Mr. Miyagi or the Cobra Kais. I mean like KNOW. This is what stops leaders from making decisions. This is what stops businesses from adjusting and adapting to situational things that go on in the business. This is what stops relationships from progressing. This is so wide and broad, it's not even funny. I mean, this is great stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. Interestingly, we have a course called No Fear Family. We have a course called No Fear Coach. We have another one, No Fear Team. So I've done stuff with corporate, with teams, with professional teams. So No Fear Team is more about coaching and athletics. No Fear Coach. No Fear Team is like your business team. with your area management team, your sales team. They know for your family. That's obviously one. Yeah, so we've already done it, but it's kind of word of mouth. We've got the packages, we've done them, but it's somebody who like, there's one person listening who goes, I'm going to bring this guy into my company. We don't do a bunch of that. It's just, I haven't positioned it like a, I haven't marketed that. It's still,
it's so valuable. I've spent the last 2 decades in corporate America, and I've been through all the, the training courses and the leadership courses. And but every bad decision or every lack of a decision comes from fear.
Yeah, 100%.
Comes from fear. Hey, so we covered a lot, and you are still on the East Coast in our mind, but I know you moved to the West Coast.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying to me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Finish you that.
No, I remember you saying to me, Vic, I always had a dream that like when I was in Canada, I wanted to be in Hollywood. I wanted to move to California. And I'm making that happen. Yeah. And you did.
And what's funny, and I'm glad you brought that up, because when you talk about grit and fear management, when I saw the company, we had about $400K in the bank. It was really ugly because it was a hostile takeover. There was lawyers and finger pointing and fucking yelling, and my wife Jessie's sitting on the floor in our house in Virginia Beach crying. What are we gonna do? And everyone around me is going, hey, you tried, you gave it a good shot, you got that $17 million deal, you got screwed, come back to Canada where you got family and you got roots and you got this. And she's on the floor crying, and the kids are, what are we going to do? And I looked at her, and this is word for word. I said, well, if we're going to be homeless, let's be homeless in California, because I heard the weather's great. and she started laughing like that with tears running down her face.
Yeah.
Happened to have been already booked to speak at this counterterrorism expo. And I said, book everyone tickets. You guys are all going to come with me, and we're going to go look at properties. And she's like, were you serious? I go, yeah, I'm not moving back to Canada. That's not the plan. I go, well, I'll figure this out. And we looked at literally, I think, 17 or 18 homes in 2 days. The real estate agent wanted to tell us. And Jessie, we drive up, and she'd go, no. But we have an appointment. I can just tell, not even intro, I don't want to buy this house. And we, at one point, looking at houses online and then getting there and seeing them, I'm sure you've gone through that where you're like, whoa,
of course.
Really good job of staging. This is not what the house. And, our budget went doubled in terms of where we had to go. And I didn't have the money. And we were still I had my house in Virginia Beach that wasn't selling. It was freaking winter time. It was a shitty market. I was going to carry 2 mortgages. Well, it was crazy. And Jessie pulls me aside and she says, we don't need to buy a house. We can get an apartment. We can get a trailer as long as we get it. And I said, we'll be fine. I said, I know you all know what happened. Remember earlier I said how ashamed I was of me for not using the system?
Yep.
And I said to her, although you know what happened and the kids know what happened, I'm going to fix this as if you didn't know what happened and we just moved. So, is this the house you want? She just looked at me, and I walked into the guy, and there were a bunch of people that put bids on it. It was the last house. We made that appointment. And I said, look, and you remember our home invasion? I said,
do.
We had a home invasion in Virginia Beach. That accelerated the move. I said, I had a hostility. I said, I'm not bullshitting you. Here's the police reports. Here's the helicopter over my house. I dissolved my company. My wife wants this house. I'm not going to ask you for $100,000 less. I'm going to ask you what you want. Sell me the house. And the realtor, because we crashed the house, usually the owner's on home.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me, and they went and talked, and he said, okay.
Oh, wow.
Wild. And then I just worked my fucking ass off, and here we are.
Bold move. How long you been in this house?
14 years.
God bless. Great.
Yeah.
You still like California?
I love it here because I moved here when I was 50. I'm 64 now.
Okay.
I grew up in the 60s watching, Wild Wild West and Streets of San Francisco and all the shows, and came out here. This is where the mecca of martial arts were. I've been in, every martial art magazine and multiple covers. So I've been coming out here going like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Within a few hours, you could be skiing or hiking or swimming or surfing or desert, or it's like amazing, other than the crazy people in the politics, right? So, and it's expensive, and it's funny. I don't make, like I do well, I work my ass off. But when someone says that's expensive or gas is so expensive there, I look at them, I go, listen, depending on who they are, I go, I have no idea how much gas is. I got to fill my car. If I need to make more money, I need to make more money. That's all.
Got to earn through it, is what I say.
Yeah. So I don't.
Got to earn through it.
I didn't,
Hey, you might be around crazy people, but at least the weather's great.
Well, but also, the next time you're out here, come visit. I live in a about 4 miles from the ocean in a place called Leeuwenhoek, which is, a lot of people don't know where that is. It's outside. It's on the outskirts of Encinitas. And, it's a small, like, surfy town. And I mean, during the crazy last 4 years, I didn't have a mask on. I didn't see anybody with it. It was like it wasn't this area. I had to travel a little bit. Like when people think of California, and this is the problem with the propaganda and news. When you think of California, all you think about is like, shots of like San Francisco everywhere.
Yeah.
And if you came down
because
here,
that's what's looping on television. That's just.
You came down here, you went for my walk. You walked by houses with American flags and July 4th celebration, getting ready. Of course we've got nutcases and stuff like that, but
they're everywhere, Tom.
You got that everywhere.
They are everywhere. I live in the great state of Texas, which everybody thinks you come in here. It will tell you a great story. My uncle, Joe, just a great guy. He's my father's youngest brother. Tells me, you live in the real America. Loves to come visit.
Right.
Came a couple of years ago, even stayed with us for over a month. It was just one of the greatest family months I've had.
Nice.
It's kind of like having my dad around. He's so much like my father. My dad has since passed, but it's funny. The very first time he came here, he drives around the neighborhood. He's like, just kind of looking around, shaking his head. And then he goes, you got a Costco here? I go, yeah, I got a Costco here. Of course. He goes, come on, take me to Costco. So we get in the car. I'm 2 miles from a Costco. We go into Costco and he walks in, and he's salt of the earth guy from Staten Island, Vietnam veteran. He takes 2 steps in, he looks around, he goes, you got to be shitting me. I said, what's that? He goes, this looks just like the Costco in Staten Island. I'm like, yeah, Uncle Joe, it looks like the Costco in Germany too. I mean, they're all the same. Right. And after being here for about 5 or 6 days, he said to me, I'm surprised. This looks like every place else. I thought there'd be more cowboys here. I thought I'd see more guns.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, because that's what everybody wants you to think about Texas.
Right.
I had a concealed carry permit here in Texas, and we went to, when that went away and you just have a license to carry and people are allowed to open carry pretty much anywhere they want. Obviously, schools and other public places, all the usual laws prohibited. I didn't see an onslaught of people packing on their hips and exposed.
Right.
Not 1/10 of 1% more did I see that. If anybody's carrying anything here, it's absolutely concealed. You never know. Like it just didn't happen. But, when that got passed, everybody envisioned Texas.
Right.
Cowboy hat, 2 6-shooters,
right.
Shootouts in the street. That's not the case. It's not. Much like what you're saying about California. Sounds like you live in a normal American neighborhood.
Yeah. Obviously it's like it's insane some of the shit going on here. But every day I'm going to delete Instagram and all social media, waste of time. And then you don't, it's like,
Yeah.
you choose, you got to watch what you feed yourself, right? Like the wrong food can make you sick, can make you fat. The wrong news can make you sick and make you fat. Oh, insane.
I went on a 3+ year hiatus from social media. I was inactive on everything. The only thing I kept open, and I guess now it's considered social media, although originally it wasn't, was LinkedIn. And that was just for business connectivity. But, when you see people posting things on LinkedIn that look much like what they post on Facebook, it's a social media platform now. You remember Ray, my buddy with the crutches?
Yeah.
So, maybe it was 2018 or 19. I forget. Ray fell on some hard times. I've been helping him for years to the best of my ability, mentally, emotionally, financially. And he was in a bad spot. Like, he got himself really down the road. I said, you know what? I'm going to use the power of my influence, and I'm going to raise money, and we're going to buy him a car, and we're going to do a bunch of shit. Well, I knew I had to be back on social media to do that.
Right.
And so I went on, I created a donation site. I seeded it with $5,000. We raised a total of $20,000.
Nice.
We got him a late model car, gave him some money, bought him all these new clothes, paid his insurance, did all this great stuff. And I did that for a period of 2.5 months. And then I went off social media again for another 3 years. And now that I've kicked off this, then I leaked back on Instagram because, with my daughter moving to Mexico City, I'd never know anything about what's going on. It's not like the kids pick up the phone and call all day long.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to see what's happening there. And then when I started the podcast back at the top of this year, I opened the valve on Facebook again, and I'm sort of popping out there. But I do not sit on social media and read. I don't pay attention to comments. You can call me the worst thing on the universe. You can tell me one of my shows suck. You can do all these things. I will not know. I do not care. And this show is about positivity and positive vibes and talking about cool subjects and learning from people's experience. And I think today, Tony, what you've shared with the audience is formidable. I mean, aside from the acronym and fear, you have just this incredible story of resiliency. And, to take a situation like the one you said, everybody's on the floor in your family room or your living room, and they're crying and they don't know what they're going to do. And you're going to go, we're moving to California. We're making a move. I'm going to erase the fear for all of us. I'm going to lead this family out to California. And then to bring levity into it is just really incredible. And there's so many lessons in there, right? And I'm going to tie this back to one last thing. My business partner on one of our business calls a couple of weeks ago asked a question of the entire staff and said, hey, what would you tell your 18-year-old self? And so he's zipping around the Zoom call and he said, Vic, what do you got? And I said, it's all going to work out. All going to work out. I go, the amount of shit people stress over. And when you stay in that moment of stress and that moment turns into an hour and turns into a day and turns into weeks and months and years, and this entire wall of things start collapsing around you, depression, negativity, lack of connection, lack of community. I mean, these things don't happen like that. There's a catalyst for it. Your story of resilience and saying, I'm going to move forward. I got the ball, get in the van, so to speak. If you're in the rock and roll business, we're going on the road and we're going to do it. And most importantly, the work ethic, like you're willing to work and you're not waiting for somebody to sort of lay something down your lap. You've laid down so many things here. I'm going to create a lot of shorts from this, by the way, because you've put down so many great things here. But I want to go out on a couple of things. First and foremost, I want to again tell the audience, and I've got a lot of people in business that will, that I'm colleagues with and that are likely going to listen to this. This no fear thing is no joke. And everybody on your team who is lacking the ability to make a decision, the ability to lead, the ability to sort of manage their emotions in crisis situations, or when the getting tough, is all about some underlying fear they have, whether it's to fail or not succeed or disappoint. I mean, this is vital. For people listening, you got to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to put in the show notes how to get in touch with you, Tony, so people can do that. That's number one. Number two, none of this is a surprise to me. You're the guy I thought you were, and remember, and better. And you're a seeker as well, always seeking, new information, new insights. You're an encyclopedia of this stuff. It's been really my pleasure to have you on the show today. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Maybe in 6 months, we'll pick a topic and do it again if your schedule permits.
Yeah, no, I'd love to, man. It's always good. I remember when I first met you, I knew there was a connection, a little chemistry.
No doubt.
And I'm glad we stayed in touch. I'd love to do, another show. Hopefully next time I'm in Texas or you're out here, we can get together and have a meal again.
I would love to do that. My friend, thank you so much for taking your time today.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. See you, man. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the show. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, the Podcast Index, and Podcasting 2.0. We'd really appreciate if you download Fountain, find us there, and support us via Value for Value. We hope you enjoy the show. Happy listening.